Life in New York was always busy and loud. Every morning, we woke up early to the sound of honking horns and people shouting. The streets outside our window were filled with cars, buses, and rushing people. Everyone moved so fast, always in a hurry to get somewhere. The noise never stopped, not even at night. It was part of life in the city. I worked long hours at my office job. Every evening, I came home tired. My wife was also tired from her day. Our 2 children, a boy and a girl, were always busy with school. They had classes, homework, and after-school programs. They hardly had time to play or relax. Even weekends were filled with activities and errands. We had a good life with everything we needed. A nice apartment, good schools, jobs. But something important was missing. We needed more than just things. We needed peace. We needed time together, away from the noise and rush. One evening, after another long and noisy day, I sat with my family at the dinner table. I looked at my wife and kids and said, "Let's go on a trip." My wife raised her eyebrows in surprise. "A trip?" she asked. "Yes," I said, feeling sure. "A real trip, far from New York, away from the noise, the traffic, the busy streets. Somewhere quiet, somewhere beautiful." My children's eyes grew wide with excitement. "Where will we go?" my daughter asked eagerly. "Somewhere in nature," I said. "Maybe the forest, where we can hear the birds and see the stars." My wife thought for a moment. Then she smiled warmly. "I like this idea," she said. The children cheered and clapped their hands. Their faces were full of happiness, the happiest I had seen them in a long time. The very next day, we started getting ready. We packed our bags with clothes, food, water, and a tent. We also packed blankets, flashlights, cooking supplies, and a small stove. We wanted to be prepared for anything. We even brought board games and a few books. We were excited and a little nervous. It had been a long time since any of us had gone camping. Early in the morning, before the sun had fully risen, we loaded everything into the car and left New York behind. As we drove, the tall buildings of the city grew smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. The sound of horns and sirens faded away. The streets became wider and emptier. Soon, trees replaced buildings, and fields replaced parking lots. The air smelled fresh and clean, not like the city air that always carried the smell of smoke and gasoline. We rolled down the windows and let the cool morning wind blow through the car. It felt good against our faces. I took a deep breath and realized it had been a very long time since I had felt this peaceful. After many hours of driving, we reached a beautiful forest. The trees were tall and green, stretching high into the sky. Their leaves formed a thick roof above us, letting only small patches of sunlight through. Birds sang sweet songs from the branches. A clear river flowed nearby, the water moving quickly over smooth stones. The ground was soft with grass and fallen leaves. We stopped the car and got out. My children ran around, laughing and picking up interesting leaves and small, colourful stones. My wife stood still for a moment, looking all around. Then she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled. "This is beautiful," she said softly. "It's perfect," I said, feeling happy. We found a nice flat spot near the river to set up our camp. We all worked together. My son helped me set up the tent poles, while my daughter helped my wife tie the ropes. We laid the blankets inside the tent and put our bags in a corner. When we were done, we sat by the river and listened to the gentle sound of the water. It was soft and calming, like a song. I dipped my hand into the river. The water was cold but felt wonderful. My wife sat down beside me and smiled. "This is exactly what we needed," she said. I nodded. "This is home for now," I said. That night, after the sun went down, we built a fire. We collected small sticks and bigger pieces of wood. My son helped light the fire, and soon the flames danced and crackled. We sat close together around it, feeling its warmth on our faces. Above us, the sky was covered in stars. So many stars that it looked like a painting. "Look at all those stars," my son said, pointing up. "There are more stars than we can count," I said. We sat in silence, watching the stars twinkle. There were no car horns, no sirens, no shouting people, just the sound of the river, the soft crackling of the fire, and the gentle night breeze. For the first time in a very long time, I felt truly free. The next morning, the air was cool and fresh. The sun rose slowly behind the tall trees, lighting up the forest with a soft golden glow. Birds sang happily, and the river flowed gently as always. I stretched my arms wide and took a deep breath. The air smelled clean, full of the scent of trees and fresh water. My wife and children were still sleeping inside the tent. The city felt far away, like a distant memory. I smiled to myself. This was the peace we had been looking for. After a while, my wife woke up and stepped outside. She looked around, listening to the soft sounds of nature. "It's so quiet," she said. "No cars, no people, just trees, birds, and the river." I nodded. "It feels really good," I said. We sat by the river together, listening. A small rabbit hopped past us, its nose twitching. Birds flew from branch to branch. Everything around us was full of life, but it was all so peaceful, so gentle. Soon the children woke up. They ran to the river, splashing water on their faces and laughing loudly. "This water is freezing," my daughter shouted, laughing. "But it feels good," my son added. They played by the river, throwing stones and making big splashes. Their laughter filled the air. I watched them and felt a deep happiness. In New York, they were always busy and tired. Here, they were free. We made breakfast over the fire. We cooked eggs and toasted bread. The smell was amazing. We sat on a big blanket and ate together. The food tasted better than anything we ate in the city. Maybe it was the fresh air, or maybe it was because we were all together, relaxed and happy. My wife looked at the trees and said, "I could stay here forever." I knew exactly how she felt. After breakfast, we decided to explore the forest. We walked along the river, stepping carefully over rocks and fallen branches. The trees stood tall all around us. The ground was soft under our feet, covered in a blanket of leaves. We saw bright butterflies fluttering through the air and colourful birds singing from the branches. My children ran ahead, pointing at everything. "Look at this giant tree," my son called. "It's so old." My daughter picked up a bright yellow leaf. "This is the prettiest leaf I've ever seen," she said. As we walked, we heard a new sound, the loud rushing of water. We followed the noise and soon found a beautiful waterfall. Water tumbled down the rocks into a small, clear pool. "Can we swim?" my son asked eagerly. I touched the water. It was cold, but felt fresh and clean. "Yes," I said, smiling, "but only for a little while." The children jumped in, laughing and splashing each other. My wife and I sat on a flat rock, watching them play. Time passed slowly in the best way. No one was rushing. No one was worried. We were just enjoying the moment. The sun moved across the sky, and the light changed through the trees. It felt magical. We all felt calm and free. Later, we sat on the rocks by the river again. The air was warm, the sun high in the sky. Birds flew above us, and little insects buzzed in the grass. The river's sound was like a soft lullaby. "This place feels like a dream," my wife said, leaning back and closing her eyes. "A dream we don't want to wake up from," I replied with a smile. Our children were still playing in the water, building little towers with smooth stones. "Look at this one," my daughter said, holding up a perfectly round stone. "It's beautiful." "Let's take it home," my son said, smiling. After some time, we decided to move on. We packed our things and followed a small path deeper into the forest. The ground was covered in leaves, and sunlight came through the trees in golden spots. We walked slowly, enjoying every step. My wife reached out and held my hand. "I never knew I needed this so much," she said softly. I squeezed her hand. "Me too," I said. As we walked, we spotted a deer standing quietly among the trees. It watched us with big, gentle eyes. We all froze, not wanting to scare it away. "It's so beautiful," my daughter whispered. We stayed still for a long moment. Then the deer turned and disappeared into the forest. "I'll never forget this," my son said. "Neither will I," said. Later, we found a small clearing where the sunlight fell in golden patches. We sat down to rest. I handed out water bottles, and we all drank gratefully. The forest around us was calm and still. The only sounds we could hear were the soft songs of birds hidden in the trees, and the gentle flow of the river nearby. A butterfly floated through the air, its wings glowing in the sunlight. It landed gently on my wife's hand. She gasped softly and stared at it with wide eyes, amazed by its delicate beauty. The butterfly stayed for a moment, its tiny wings slowly opening and closing, then fluttered away into the forest. My wife smiled and said in a soft voice, "Everything here feels so peaceful. It's like time moves slower." I nodded and looked around at the tall trees and the sunlight dancing through the leaves. "Maybe this is how life should be," I said quietly. The city felt like a faraway world, noisy and rushed, nothing like the peace we had found here. After resting for a while, we stood up and continued walking. The path was narrow and winding. The trees grew taller as we moved deeper into the forest. Their thick trunks rose high above our heads, and their leaves made a green roof that shaded us from the sun. The air felt cooler and fresher here, filled with the smell of earth and leaves. We followed the cheerful sound of birds singing until we reached the base of a high hill. It looked steep, but we were curious to see what was at the top. Step by step, we climbed higher. When we finally reached the top, we all stopped and gasped in wonder. Before us, the whole forest stretched out in every direction, a never-ending sea of green. Trees covered the hills and valleys as far as our eyes could see. The sunlight made the leaves shine like a carpet of gold and emerald. My children stood at the edge, eyes wide with amazement. "It's like a sea of trees," my son said in awe. My daughter took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "I wish we could stay here forever," she whispered. I smiled, feeling her words deep in my heart. I wished it too. Being here felt so natural, so right. As the sun began to set, we made our way back toward our campsite. The light turned golden, and long shadows stretched across the ground. The forest glowed warmly under the setting sun, and everything looked magical, like something out of a storybook. We walked slowly, not wanting to miss a single moment. The rustling leaves, the chirping crickets, and the distant sound of the river all mixed together into a gentle song. Every breath felt full and fresh. Every step felt easy and light. "This place is special," I said quietly to my wife as we walked. "It's more than just a trip. It feels like a new way of living." She squeezed my hand and smiled. The sky above us turned shades of orange, pink, and purple as the sun sank behind the trees. A soft wind moved through the branches, making the leaves whisper above our heads. It was a different world now, calmer, even more peaceful. We walked through the growing darkness, listening carefully to the sounds around us. Somewhere far away, an owl hooted, its call deep and strong. Crickets began their nightly song, filling the forest with a soft background music. My daughter reached for my hand. "The forest feels bigger at night," she said, her voice small in the dim light. I nodded. "It's a different world after sunset," I said, "but it's still our world." When we finally reached our campsite, we wasted no time gathering wood for a fire. My son worked beside me, stacking dry logs and small branches. My wife and daughter laid out the blankets and set up our little teapot. As the sky grew darker, we lit the fire. It crackled and roared to life, sending warmth and light into the cool night. The flames danced, throwing flickering shadows against the trees. We all sat close to the fire, feeling its comforting heat on our faces. My wife handed each of us a cup of warm tea. She had brought special herbs to brew, and the smell of it filled the air. We sipped the tea slowly. "This is the best tea I've ever had," my wife said, smiling at me over the rim of her cup. I laughed softly. "Everything tastes better in nature," I said. My children lay back on the blankets, staring up at the night sky. Without the bright lights of the city, the stars shone clear and bright, scattered like diamonds across the sky. It was the most beautiful sight I had ever seen. "Look, a shooting star," my son shouted, pointing. "Make a wish," my daughter added quickly. We all closed our eyes for a moment. I smiled to myself. I didn't need to wish for anything. I already had everything I wanted. My family, the peace of the forest, and this moment that would stay with us forever. The fire popped and crackled as we shared stories. My wife told tales from her childhood in a small village, stories filled with open fields, playful adventures, and climbing trees. "Did you really climb trees when you were little?" my son asked, eyes wide with excitement. My wife laughed. "All the time," she said proudly. "I was faster than my brothers." My daughter grinned. "I want to climb a tree tomorrow," she declared. "I'll help you," I promised with a chuckle. The night grew cooler, and we wrapped ourselves tightly in blankets. The fire burned lower, but still gave off enough warmth to keep the cold away. Even though the forest was dark around us, none of us felt afraid. We felt safe together, held by the arms of the forest and the light of the stars. My wife leaned her head on my shoulder. "I never knew life could be this simple and beautiful," she whispered. I held her closer. "Me neither," I said. "Maybe we were too busy to notice." One by one, our children's eyes closed. They fell asleep to the soft sounds of the forest. The crackling fire, the whispering wind, and the quiet breathing of each other. My wife watched them sleep with a gentle smile. "They are so happy here," she said, her voice full of emotion. "They have never been this free." I looked at our son and daughter, so peaceful in their dreams. "Neither have we," I said softly. That night, long after everyone else had fallen asleep, I stayed awake by the fire, listening to the sounds of the forest. I heard the wind moving through the trees, the distant call of an owl, and the soft breathing of my family. Everything felt right. Everything felt like home. The next morning was cool and misty. A soft fog hung in the trees, making the forest look like a dream. The fire had died down to warm embers, glowing faintly in the grey light. Birds sang high above, welcoming the new day with cheerful songs. I sat up, stretching and breathing in the cold, fresh air. My wife and children were still asleep, their faces relaxed and peaceful under their blankets. I watched them for a long moment, feeling my heart fill with gratitude. This trip had given us something we hadn't even known we were missing. I got up quietly and walked to the river. The air was crisp, and the cold water woke me up fully as I splashed it on my face. The river reflected the sky, calm and still. I closed my eyes and listened to the soothing sound of the flowing water. It was a simple sound, but it spoke of life, of peace, of time moving gently. My wife joined me a few minutes later. She knelt at the river's edge and dipped her hands into the cool water. "This place feels like a dream," she said softly, gazing across the misty river. I nodded. "A dream I don't want to leave," I said. She smiled at me, her eyes shining. "Maybe we don't have to," she whispered. Her words stayed in my mind. When the children woke up, we made breakfast over the fire. We toasted bread and warmed tea. My daughter wandered nearby and found a bush full of wild berries. "Can we eat these?" she asked, holding out a handful. My wife checked them carefully and smiled. "Yes, they're safe." We all tasted them. They were sweet, fresh, and bursting with flavour, better than anything from a store. My son grinned, his teeth stained purple from the berries. "Nature gives us everything," he said proudly. After breakfast, we decided to climb a small hill nearby. The path was covered in soft leaves, and the sunlight came through the trees in golden beams. My daughter held my hand as we climbed. "Do you think there's a good view up there?" she asked eagerly. "Let's find out," I said, with a smile. Step by step, we climbed higher until we reached the top. There, we stopped and stared. The view was even more beautiful than the one we had seen before. Below us, the forest stretched endlessly. The river shone silver in the morning sun. The sky was a perfect blue, with soft white clouds drifting lazily. My wife took my hand. "This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen," she whispered. My children stood quietly, taking it all in. At that moment, I knew something had changed inside us forever. We sat on the hilltop, letting the sun warm our faces. A gentle breeze moved through the trees, making them dance and sway. My son picked up a small rock and held it in his hands. "I want to remember this place forever," he said. "You will," I told him. "Some places stay in our hearts forever." My daughter found a bright red leaf and held it up. "Can we take some things with us?" she asked. My wife nodded. A few small things to remind us of this trip. Later we made our way back to camp. Everything looked different now. The colours seemed brighter, the trees taller. It was as if the forest itself had grown closer to us, welcoming us. At camp, we packed our things slowly. None of us wanted to rush. We folded our blankets carefully and packed our bags with quiet hands. The fire had burned out, leaving only soft grey ash. My wife looked at me. "This place changed us," she said softly. I nodded. It showed us what really matters. As we left, we all turned back for one last look. The trees stood tall and strong. The river kept flowing. The wind carried the sweet scent of earth and leaves. My children waved goodbye, as if the forest could see them. I took a deep breath, feeling full of something deep and wonderful.